Hey there, and welcome to No Recipe Required. So tonight I've got a halibut dish for you, and one of the things I like to do is cook with the seasons. Once you know how to cook a piece of halibut, you know how to cook a piece of halibut. You can do it any time of the year, but one of the things you can do to kind of change it up is actually change what you serve it with. So today I've got some butternut squash. We're going to dice it up into a nice fine dice and make a butternut squash hash out of that, and then use that as the bed on which we'll serve our halibut on there. It's a great seasonal dish in fall, come Thanksgiving time. Absolutely awesome. Let's go ahead and get started. I've got my butternut squash, brunoise, or just diced up very fine. We're going to start our hash by just blanching the butternut squash off. I've got a pot of boiling water, just like we do with all blanches. And I'm just going to let these go until they just start to get tender. With these size, it won't take long, maybe 3 or 4 minutes. It won't take long for the butternut squash to get tender. And we're gonna cook it again, so you just want it barely tender. And once you have it there, you wanna just pull it out and dunk it into a bowl of ice water to stop that cooking process. And you can do this easily, hours ahead of time. Once they're cool, just drain them off and keep them in the fridge. We're going to start our butternut squash with a little bit of bacon. Now, I love to use bacon as a flavoring ingredient. This is it's a really cool technique that you can use where you just use a little bit of really flavorful meat like bacon to flavor a much bigger ingredient. Like in this case, I'm going to do it with some butternut squash, and it parts obviously its own flavor, texture, and it's absolutely wonderful. It starts off all the same. You're just going to render out the bacon, get it nice and crispy in a pan all by itself. I started with a touch of olive oil. We're going to cook it over medium heat until it's fully rendered out. Our bacon is rendered out, so we're going to add in a couple diced shallots. You could also use onion, and I've got a few garlic cloves. 3 small, 2 big would do. We're just going to add those in and let them soften up, and then we're really just going to come back and finish it with our butternut squash, a couple other ingredients. This is the time to get your pan on for your fish because we're about 10 minutes away. Onions have softened up a little bit. Turn the heat back onto high, and I've got the butternut squash that we blanched off. Remember, it is just barely tender, so it could definitely use a few more minutes of cooking time. We got to season that butternut squash because it hasn't hit any real salt in the dish yet. And then I'm also going to add just a little bit of chicken stock to help deglaze the pan. Pick up some of that yummy bits on the bottom. And that is also going to form just the essence of a little sauce in there. I'm going to let it reduce down to almost nothing though. So our fish, we're going to start when our hash is just about finished. And I'm using a non-stick pan, and I've got a couple fairly small pieces, so it's a pretty small non-stick pan. I'm going to lay the fish down. You want to get that nice sizzle to make sure it sears off. And I'm starting with the bigger piece as well, because that's going to take just a moment or two longer than my smaller piece, which I'll lay down. And you don't want to touch it, you just want to let it sear. Obviously I've got it seasoned well with salt and pepper. And I'm looking to get a nice brown crust on the outside. We'll flip it once and then we're ready to go. I've got my fish going. My chicken stock is fully reduced, or about 3/4 reduced or so. I've got here a little bit of apple because I want the crunch in there, and it goes great with butternut squash. We need an herb, and since we're going fall, I got a little cut up sage. We just added a new ingredient, so a little bit of salt, a little bit of pepper. Toss everything to combine. And really, this just needs 3 or 4 minutes to warm up and get the heat through the apples. You still want to maintain that nice crunch. So by the time the fish is done, this will definitely be done. I turn the heat down to medium low. I can see on our fish, I'm starting to get the done marks coming up the side, so I can take a little peek, and I want to see a nice brown coating on the underside, which is what I have. So I'm going to take, if you got a pair of fish tongs, that'd be great. But that's essentially what you're looking for. Nice dark color. You want it just barely done inside. Fish, you know, I don't really mind just separating a little bit to check out. I just pulled one fillet off the heat because, again, the smaller one was going to be done a little bit sooner. This guy is perfectly cooked right now, so we're going to pull it off. Let's serve it up. Last thing I'm going to do to my hash is just add about a tablespoon of butter. We're going to take it off the heat and just stir that butter in, and that again is going to help form just a nice little glossy sauce and make it absolutely delicious. Okay, our butternut squash hash is done, so we're going to lay that kind of right in the middle of our plate, piled nice and high. And then we take our beautifully cooked fish and lay him or her right on top as well. And there you've got beautiful fish with butternut squash hash. I'll see you next time on No Recipe Required.